Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. I am your host, Justin Dixon, and today we've got Jason Kiesel on the podcast. He is our first official repeat guest on the podcast, and I'm excited to have him back to talk about his new venture, Packed House Pictures. So Jason was a guest about a year ago on the podcast. We talked about his journey starting a GovTech business, selling that business twice, and then exiting, and then really having not a lot to do. So we talk about his journey from that point where he was kind of semi-retired until he figured out he wanted to start a new venture. So Packed House Pictures is a kind of two-sided business. He has started an indie film kind of production company and then a vertical film company. So we talk a lot about kind of the indie film and kind of the vertical video space in this episode. So I think this would be really cool to get him back on and talk about his new venture. So let's get Jason on the pod. Interested in hearing conversations with private equity leaders, CEOs of private equity-backed companies, and startup entrepreneurs where they share their stories about their career journeys, starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, and the important role that having the right talent plays in building a successful business, then you are in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. Here's your host, Justin Dixon. Jason, man, good to see you again. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, so this is going to be a unique one because you are the first official repeat guest on the Growth Capital Podcast. So congratulations on that distinguished honor of being a repeat guest.
Thank you. It's a deeply moving honor to be the first repeat guest.
Very cool. Well, I guess for those people that didn't listen or watch the first episode, give us a little bit of an overview of kind of who you were before what we're going to talk about in your new venture. But yeah, give us a little bit of kind of history on Jason.
Sure. So prior to the company that I'm working on now, I was a builder founder, a technical founder, and I started a CRM which sold into the government markets. The phrase that's typically thrown around is GovTech. So anything technically related to the government space, software, hardware. We did software and we sold to cities and counties. Basically built that company from the ground up over the course of 10 years, exited to a private equity firm here in Austin, Stratum Capital. Bob Morris, the partner over there, he's a great guy. And eventually that was part of a mini roll up. We were the first kind of acquisition for their previous acquisition. So they merged us together. And then we did two subsequent acquisitions while I was there. I headed that portion up. So when I came onto the merged entity, I came on as head of product and then later shifted the role to chief strategy officer, where I headed up M&A. And we did two additional acquisitions. One was called PrimeGov, and that's a legislative and agenda management solution. So think of a city clerk managing a city council meeting. We sold software for them to manage that process both before, during, and after the meetings. And then we rolled up, the second roll up was a video streaming provider. So, and they were specific to agenda and meeting management. So it fit in very nicely with the product that we had picked up. So after that, we immediately sold to a competitor, Granicus. And that was in 2022. It initially sold in 2019. 3.5 years later, we sold again in 2022. I was kind of semi-retired. I think we had just spoke kind of right after, like a year after that kind of last acquisition was when it's either 2024 or 23 that we.
Yeah, it was 2024. We talked. Yeah. Obviously, we've known each other for a bit here in Austin. So you had kind of two exits with one business essentially. You sold it to a private equity firm, rolled it into, and then had another exit. So kind of a double
two bites
double
of
whammy
the same apple, as they say.
Yeah,
a lot of people say.
It's very unique and very cool. And so you were semi-retired for a bit. Obviously, you've got a massive and very esteemed whiskey and bourbon collection behind you.
I do, yes.
Which is probably, you can probably only see about 10% of what the actual collection is. But
this is nothing. This is, in fact, what I have here is probably only, there's probably 200-300 bottles in this room, but I've got probably another 500-600 in storage. Yeah. So I've got a lot of my highly allocated stuff, my duplicates that I keep. Those are all in storage. So
yeah. we should do a separate podcast just on whiskey and all that stuff. That would be fun.
I would love to. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah. So I guess so you were semi-retired for a bit. I guess talk a little bit about kind of that journey because you when you start businesses as a founder, you kind of have this idea to exit and then maybe have that ability to no longer have to work, right? You have enough capital that you generated from an exit or exits
Hmm.
that is then kind of funding your life for forever, essentially. But a lot of times, and there's other founders that I know that you and I both know that you tend to get a little itchy after a year or two because you're a founder and that's like you're an entrepreneur. And so you have this itch to continue to do things and build things. And obviously, you being a technical founder, you have the ability to put your brain into an app or into a business more so than a non-technical founder, even though now you've got Lovable and all these other tools that a non-tech
Yeah.
person can kind of at least spin some things up off the ground. So talk a little bit about that journey from exit. You get a bunch of cash in your bank account and you're like, wow, this is great. But then now you're at the point where you're like, you started something new. So kind of lead us from that kind of like aha
Sure.
moment. You got all this money to then now you're like, cool, now I'm going to just jump back into starting another business.
Yeah. Well, first I'll say it's a little crazy when you get that kind of initial check. I got one before in 2019. I took some money off the table before I rolled in my equity into the kind of new merged entity. But getting that second check, which was, I don't probably a factor of 10 higher. It's odd. You're just like, I had a good salary, when I worked at Rock Solid, which was the kind of merged entity that we had come into. And, I made a good living, but it's so weird just to see it like that big of a number come into your bank account. You're right, though. So I was actually, I don't know if I mentioned this. I was the first employee that was packaged out when we got acquired the final time. So there was a whole team of executives. I think there was, 5 or 6 of us. We had a CEO. I was the CSO. We had a CPTO. So he handled product and tech. We had a CFO, a CRO, and I think a CMO. So we had kind of all the C-suites covered. Basically, I was on autopilot once we did get acquired. I wasn't really doing anything. And, the deal closed in October. We had to pass, I think it's DOJ approval because we were in some tier that it needed government approval for antitrust. And that got signed off on mid-October. And I was basically showing up to meetings, and that was about it. I wasn't really doing any work. That's because there's nothing for me to do. I was heading up M&A, and I can't do any M&A when someone else has just bought us. So,
right.
So we had kind of had an internal bet as to how long I would last. I thought I'd probably get by around till January, February, but apparently they did a whole budget review in November, and I was the big line item that they decided to chop off.
Let's get this salary off the books.
I was packaged out, I got my severance, and there I was November of 2022, just with basically nothing to do. You go from basically a full calendar, right? Like meetings, you've got dev tech meetings, and I was in those because as a technical founder, I wrote most of the code for my product, probably 90% of it. So I would show up to answer questions or point engineers in the right direction if they needed to. So you have meetings like that. You've got strategy meetings. You've got product meetings. You've got due diligence that you're doing. And you go from all of that, 50 hours a week-ish, to nothing. And it's just you really don't know what to do with yourself. It's a little kind of crazy. You're just kind of stuck there going, okay. You look at your count. I lost count of what day it was. I didn't know if it was a Monday or Tuesday or Saturday. Because there's nothing framing your day. You wake
don't
up
go to an office. You don't have to wake up and do something. You're just...
No, it's not like I'm checking in and doing email. I literally was just, one day it was just gone. It's the weirdest thing. So your brain kicks in. You're like, okay, so what am I going to do? Am I going to do nothing for the rest of my life? Am I going to go play golf? Or what am I going to do? Obviously, I like to collect whiskey, but I can't drink that all day. That would be very unhealthy.
That could be a big problem.
Yes. So I did take time off. I think my wife and I, we traveled a bit, but it gets really, really boring. Honestly, I think being an entrepreneur, being a builder, it's in your DNA. And when that aspect of your life comes to a grinding halt immediately, you just get antsy. You're like, okay, what am I going to do next? So I looked at starting a VC, a micro VC fund. I thought about doing something in the whiskey space. So I was potentially looking at starting a retail outfit And I still have kind of I think what would be a good idea to, I don't want to say disrupt, but to do something different in the kind of spirits retail space. The problem there is every state has its own regulations. So like you go down these paths and you're like, oh, this will be cool. And then you're like, oh my God, like if I want to sell alcohol in the state of Texas online, I have to have a physical presence in every county that I ship to. Like what?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So whereas California, it's like, no, you can do whatever you want. Like, so every state kind of has their own kind of intricate, they call them ABC laws, alcohol beverage control. So I went down that rabbit hole and I'm like, that's too much effort. Like, I don't want to do that. Looked at micro VC fund. Okay. I have this deep domain in GovTech. I've been doing it. I know all the players. I did M&A for a couple of years. I know founders. Maybe I can start a micro VC fund and bring on some LPs and stuff. Went down that road. Turns out, like, after doing my research, there wasn't enough deal flow that I could find in the GovTech space that got me excited to be like, okay, yeah, there's some really cool things here. I did some angel investing, which I still continue to do. I had another idea for a GovTech company, so I kind of went down that rabbit hole a little bit. So you just you find all these like little things to take up your time. And each of these things is probably like a couple months, 3 or 4 months, and they're kind of overlapping. You're kind of figuring out which path to go down. And really what kind of the impetus for me starting the business that I started with my co-founder is he's a friend of mine from LA. He's a writer. He was a staff writer on the TV show Bull, which is I think a courtroom drama on CBS. Oh, yeah. He's a novelist. So like he's pretty well dialed into the LA scene. I was when I was out there. I lived out there for 30 years. My former roommate's very successful documentarian. So he's done a bunch of documentaries. So everybody out there is like in the business. They're an actor, a writer, a director, a producer, or a waiter / one of the above.
Something. Yeah.
So he came to me with an idea and I thought it was kind of interesting. I'm a big movie fan. I have been for a very long time. I haven't been to the movies, or at least I hadn't been to the theaters in a very long time, simply because most of the films that were being made more recently just aren't kind of my thing. You know, a good superhero movie every so often, but to be honest, there's too many of them to follow. You got Ant-Man and,
the Avengers and
all of them. You have they're bringing up every single character they can bring out of the woodwork to kind of capitalize on IP. My co-founder came to me and said, hey, I'd like to make independent films. I want to make films that are more similar to like 80s, 90s, early 2000s era films, Pulp Fiction, Clerks, Swingers, all these films that were basically made for not a lot of money, but did really well because they told interesting stories and the characters were relatable and compelling and just interesting. So, and then he wanted to frame it or structure it in such a way that we kind of make an attempt to crowdfund these films. So in addition to traditional financing, which is just finding investors to invest in the script, typically you'll get somebody attached to it. So like, hey, we got John Travolta's attached. We can sell foreign rights just off of the name for $2 million. Yeah. Come on in. It's an easy win, that sort of stuff. But we would complement that with crowdfunding, pre-selling tickets essentially to the film. And the thought was there is that we would be de-risking kind of the production or the investment side in the sense that we've already pre-sold a bunch of the tickets. That money goes directly to the production. Now we don't need to pay back investors X. So any money we do make can get distributed more evenly and more efficiently. So that was the idea. I said, yeah, that's really cool. I can build the crowdfunding platform because we didn't want to use Kickstarter or GoFundMe or Indiegogo, any of the additionals. They just take too much. They take too much of the back end to make it viable. So we were going to do it all ourselves and just essentially eat. Our fee would just be the Stripe fee, the 3.5%, 4% that they take. And while we were building that, so we launched that company. We did a script competition. We had 300 inbound scripts that came in, and these were all like non-union writers. So we had scripts come in from the UK, from Ireland, from Australia, like Canada, all over the world. Our goal was that we would end up with 5 to 10 good stories. And we were kind of in the air as to like how good the quality would be, because you never really know. We were pleasantly surprised with that 300, we got 20 that were really good, kind of really good stories, kind of grades C and B plus on the high end, C minus on the low end as far as like polish and fit and finish on the actual writing. But the storylines were good, and we could shoot them for like $1 million or less, $1.5 million or less. And that was the goal. So out of those 20, we whittled down 6, and we've since optioned 6 of those screenplays, and we're currently working and developing those. But while we were doing all of this, I had a conversation with somebody at South by last year, the 2024 year. And was it 2024 or 2025? I don't know. It was like a year ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago. It had to be 2025 because that's when we first started building it. We fell into this kind of rabbit hole of vertical microdramas.
Okay.
And everybody I talked to, when I mentioned, oh, have you heard of vertical microdramas? They're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And the reason is that they're super huge in Asia. So a vertical microdrama is essentially a 1 to 3 minute episode, like a TikTok. Basically, think of a TikTok as a scene or a chapter of the overall film. And they stitch like anywhere from 40 to, I've seen upwards of 70 of these 1 to 3 minute chapters all stitched together to make one contiguous like film.
Okay.
The kick is each chapter is kind of its own thing. So like there's typically a cliffhanger at the end of the chapter that, it's something that you can watch for 3 minutes, be done with it, and be like, oh, that's cool. It's kind of like watching a short on YouTube. Like you watch the short, you're like, oh, that was funny, or that was interesting. And so what they're doing, the major players in the space are Chinese. There's two big players, Real Short and Drama Box. The content that they put out is incredibly cheesy. It's like a telenovela soap opera. I mean, it's just like, it's poorly written. I would argue kind of poorly acted. Their production value is really, really low. They're essentially shooting a 2-hour film for around $175,000, which is crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy low. Your typical 2-hour film is, I think for $1 million, you can probably get by with a 2-week shoot. So if you've got a 4-week shoot, you're looking at $2 million, and they're shooting these things in 8 days at like 150, 175,000 per like film. So anyway, that's what a vertical microdrama is. It's this kind of really addictive, bingeable, like bite-sized content. It's Quibi, but it's Quibi with kind of a different storytelling format. Like Quibi, it's interesting. Quibi was, the whole Katzenberg, Meg Whitman, colossal failure that happened, I think, in 2021-ish, like somewhere around there. The funny thing is, I think they were just a little bit too early. They didn't focus on the cost. They burned through $1.6 billion in investment, like in financing. So they raised 1.6. They ended up just they shut it down. I don't know if they gave any back to the original investors, but they ended up shutting it down. But they were essentially taking long form content that you see on Netflix and YouTube and just making it vertical. And what they got wrong was that in order to be successful in vertical, you have to have this kind of cliffhanger. Oh, what's going to happen next? Because the business model behind these is that you're basically given the first 10, 15 minutes free, and then they hit you with a monster cliffhanger. And then the idea is that it's such an interesting cliffhanger or an interesting place in the story that you're like, oh, I got to keep going. And that's when you get to the paywall. So they show a paywall, you purchase some tokens or coins, gems. It's very much like kind of the gaming economy. So you buy, like, you're not just paying $2 to watch the rest of it. You're paying $2 for a bunch of tokens that gets you maybe another third of the way through. And so you're just constantly kind of re-upping your tokens. And when you do the economics on the content, it is absolutely bonkers. The big incumbent streamers on the vertical space, they're doing roughly anywhere from 20 to 23 cents per minute of revenue. They do have like all you can eat subscriptions, but they start at $20 a week, not $10 a month. So it's $85 a month basically to get kind of an all you can eat subscription on one of these platforms. So when you look at kind of average revenue per customer, insanely more profitable than Netflix and the typical streamers, which apparently, according to the latest stuff, and we're kind of early 2026 here. Yeah. The early data showing that there are more people consuming verticals now in Asia than the incumbent streamers. So Netflix, Hulu, all the big, HBO, all those big players, Apple, they're losing ground to the verticals, and they were already losing ground to like TikTok and YouTube. I think if you ask Netflix, they would say probably our biggest competition is YouTube and TikTok. And so,
do you think it's around kind of the lack of people's ability to pay attention anymore, especially in the younger generation?
It's 100%.
I don't know if you've seen the thing about, and I don't know if this is specific to Netflix. I'm assuming it's not, but when they did the movie The Rip with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon,
they had to tell them to re-edit it.
Well, because they had to reiterate the plot of the movie like 3 or 4 times because they assumed that people just wouldn't be paying attention, right, throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I've heard this other concept. You may be more informed on this than I am. It's called like second screen content. So like you're watching a movie, but then you're on your phone and they have some type of engagement on your phone with the movie or the TV show because they know everybody that's watching TV is also using their phone for something, right? So why not keep them engaged in the actual thing? So I
actually experienced that second one firsthand when I was in Miami in December, in 2025. We were there for an art show or something, and we were taking an Uber, and the Uber guy had his Uber app on one phone, and on another phone he had sitting kind of in the dash center console. He was watching a vertical, and the vertical I think it was subtitled because I think it actually was it's either in Chinese or it was in some foreign language, but it had, I think, Spanish subtitles. He was a Hispanic guy driving, but he was like 40 something years old. He wasn't a young guy. He wasn't super old, but he was maybe my age, maybe a little less. And what's interesting is that the main market for these verticals is women because of its kind of soap opera style of content. But he was watching it and he had 2 screens, it was just kind of on in the background. And so I asked him, is that a vertical? And he's he had a little bit of a broken English, and he's like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, is that real short? Kind of trying to get it like who he was watching. And he's like, no. He's like, it's drama. And I'm like, drama box? He's like, yeah, it's drama box. So he was basically watching it on a second screen as he was doing his stuff. And it's
that doesn't seem safe in an Uber, I would say.
We were in traffic. It's not like we were going anywhere. Like we were just sitting, like we were literally just sitting on the bridge, inching our way forward. So, but yeah, it was just crazy to me that, here I had been researching and we were building this platform. So that's what we did. The be all end all of the vertical microdrama talk is that because there are these very successful incumbent Chinese streamers with this platform, there's been a number of independent filmmakers and content creators that want to make their own verticals, but can't because those are all closed systems. So Real Short, Drama Box, they control production and they control distribution. If they are licensing content, it's typically a buyout. So, and they're not paying a lot of money. So if you've made a vertical, let's say you spent $100,000, 150, they'll license it to you, but they're only going to pay 175, 200 for it. Like they're going to not pay a lot. And then the creator loses all the upside. So if they do buy it and it does become a hit, because there's been a number of verticals where they're making a few $1 million in just a couple weeks. You look at Real Short and some of their view counts as 500 million views on some of these, titles. So they're making very, very good money on these. And you as a filmmaker, there's no back end, there's no anything. So we decided we would build a vertical streaming platform for the indie creator. And so that's what we did. And that's what we're working on now. That's what we're doing a little pre-seed round of financing for right now. And it's going well. We're going to launch here. Let's see. We've soft launched already. We soft launched in November, but we only have one title, and we're going to be doing our big official launch probably early May. So like May 8th, 10th, something like that. There's a big vertical festival down in LA we're going to be going to. So we'll probably make our announcement there and talk to folks and whatnot. We should have by that time at least 10 titles. We're trying to get everything squared away so we can have around 15, maybe 20. But the filmmakers are in various stages of production, and some aren't done, some are, so it's all just kind of very free form. We're excited about that because it's just now starting to get very, very interesting in the US. So most of the traffic and money has been Asian markets. But now you're starting, like now Real Short's coming out and saying, the US is now our biggest growing segment in the world. So, and I think they're on par to do 1.5 billion in revenue. And
Wow.
and this is a 3-year-old company. So it's not like they're a company that's been around for ages. They literally have been around 3 years, and they're already doing over $1 billion in revenue. And
well, I'm sure their margins are better too, because they're not, the production quality or value or the cost is not as what it would be to make a 1 point some billion revenue film, right? Like it's
correct.
It's a different model.
They're actually building their own studios out in China to film vertical specifically. So they're reusing sets, they're reusing, a lot of this stuff. One of the problems that we feel we are solving with our platform, which is called Inverted, by the way, it stands for Indie Verticals. And one of the problems we're solving is that there is no diversity of content on these platforms. It's kind of the same themes recycled over and over again. One time it's a vampire, and this time it's a werewolf. This one it's a billionaire CEO boss. But the storylines are all kind of the same. Yeah. You've got, I married a secret mafia boss, or my husband's a secret billionaire. It's just these weird, they're just weird titles, and they just kind of recirculate and reuse the same content over and over again. So the filmmakers that we're speaking to are like, well, I want to make a horror. I want to make a comedy. I want to make a unscripted reality show or a true crime drama. So and these guys just won't put it out there. So
got it.
They don't know that it's going to work, and they're not willing to kind of play with it. So that's where we're coming in.
So I know you've got Packed House Pictures. So is Packed House Pictures the film that we talked about earlier, the indie film that your guys are producing, and then Inverted is this vertical platform?
Yeah, they're not separate companies. They're all baked into the same kind of corporate structure. I didn't really want to spin it out and worry about all that, paperwork. So it's just a brand that we've called the streaming platform.
I guess now that you've started these two new ventures, realistically or theoretically, you've got two kind of strategic initiatives going on here. I guess which one is kind of taking up the most time, and then how do you see kind of the next, call it 12 months of your focus? Do you think the verticals is going to be kind of the thing that takes off, and that's going to be the main kind of driver, or do you see these indie films that are scripted, that are getting these script competitions and all of that?
So I think from a revenue standpoint, Inverted will definitely be the one that pops the quickest and grows the quickest.
Yeah.
With anytime you're making independent films, one, there's risk. You're putting kind of all your eggs in one or just a few baskets, and you really need one of them. It's just like investing, right? You need one of them to kind of pay for all the others, because the other ones, it's very rare for somebody to just put out hit after hit after hit. Most of even films now that are being released, they're taking hits on these. They have Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie headlining it, and they're losing $40 million. So they're spending $40 million for the film. They're only grossing 10 to 20. Their take is only 10. So they're losing money on these films. So nothing is for certain. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do Inverted, was that we wanted a more stable stream of revenue for the business while we continue to produce our feature films. But Packed House we're going to use Packed House to produce verticals. So in addition to licensing other filmmakers' content, we will produce our own content eventually. Because with $1 million, you can make 7 to 8 verticals. So, and then I
guess I should have clarified this in the beginning, but vertical is obviously on your phone. Do you have to produce them on your phone? Like actually film them? So you can film them in normal.
Yeah. And most creators, what they're doing is they're filming it on like a normal 16:9, which is the widescreen format, but they're moving the camera vertically on either the dolly that you see the guys with this. It's just a vertically, and then in post they'll turn it. In the video editing tool. So, but you can use your phone. You can use your phone. You can use kind of any DSLR, like Canon or Nikon. But then you've got the really high end cameras like Red, which are like the 4K film quality stuff.
Got it.
But
how do you see? I mean, obviously, with AI infiltrating every corner of the world at the moment, obviously, there's a lot going on that you're probably much more plugged into in just the film actor area around script writing and protecting actors and not having their likenesses recreated and all this fun stuff. How do you see like AI helping you create things faster? But also, how do you see it maybe adversely impacting the business because script writing becomes, for some of these indie films, could you just take Blair Witch Project and make it applicable for a 2026, 2027 audience or something like that?
You'd think you could do that, but it turns out that it's still pretty hard, like to prompt AI and get a response that doesn't sound essentially AI. Artificial.
Yeah.
Right. So I think AI in its most kind of ethical way is it's going to be a productivity booster for most folks.
Yeah.
Now that kind of has this downstream effect of like, well, I'm like a senior scriptwriter. I've been writing for 20 years. I'm going to use AI to like maybe bounce story ideas or give me concepts, but then I'm actually going to go write it. Like I just need the overall concepts and, this and that, but I'm going to go write it. What do you do for the younger folks that are up and coming, right? That take training and, so it's like software development. Like I'm probably not going to hire any junior devs ever. We've got Claude, we've got all these tools, Plit, everything, to where I'm now writing code at the speed of like a team of 10.
Yeah.
And it's just me, one guy. My next hire, if it's going to be engineering, it's going to be essentially a 20-year expert that really knows how to leverage AI. I'm not going to hire a junior dev because that one guy is going to take over everything. And it's the same thing in the M&E world, media and entertainment. So I think AI will help with back-end workflows. So automating a lot of tasks like script budgeting, anything and everything in the back office. I think, it's very useful for visual effects. So what used to take a long time visual effects wise can now be rendered out pretty quickly with AI with the right prompting and tools. I think things like animation will be heavily affected by AI. When you start using the Unreal engines with AI models, you can get really, really interesting results. Acting, we're not there. I don't know if I think I just read online, there was I think her name was like Tilly Norwood. Do you remember this? She was the full AI actress that was created by a group out of Europe, the UK. I actually met the founder at a party here in Austin. She's super smart. I think she got like a PhD in physics. They retired her. So she was actually, I think, signed by CAA, a huge talent agency. They signed an actual AI like avatar. And they had a bunch of clips of her like acting and doing stuff. And it looked pretty good. I mean, it looked pretty real. But I don't know if there's just so much backlash against it. A lot of actors and writers just don't like it. And I understand it. But, I could say the same thing about my work.
Yeah.
It's like that's the way it is.
We were watching a documentary about something a few weeks ago, and like some documentaries, they do like this is a recreation of like the person saying what they were supposed to be saying in this scene or whatever. And at the bottom of the TV, it said, this is essentially, I don't remember what exactly it said, but it said, this is AI. Like this is an AI person to protect the real person's identity. This is an AI person. And I was like, that was the first time that I'd seen that in any type of actual, I think it was on HBO or Netflix or one of the major platforms. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting because instead of having to black out a face or to change the person's voice, you just use AI. And it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of,
I think that's that's a perfect use for it. And what my kind of thoughts on AI is like the AI revolution is coming. To try to stop it is foolish and a fool's errand, because if we as a company don't pursue certain AI technologies, somebody else will, and they'll capitalize on it. But I think what we can do is be transparent about it. We can be upfront and honest. Yeah. So we're going to tell people like, hey, a large part of this film was made with AI, if it was, right? Or, hey, these were the characters that we made with AI, or the special effects were made with AI. Like I think if you're upfront with people about it, I think it's the notion of people trying to fool someone that really makes people kind of cringe and go, ugh, like, why would you do that? Like, it's not even like, it's not real. But, I think being truthful and upfront about it, probably most people would be okay with it. Or they just
especially if it's not like the main character, right? Like it's not like you're completely just saying, I just flip the coin. AI is going to create all this thing. It's like no, we've leveraged it for the right things and not everything, essentially.
Yeah. So the first film that we streamed on Inverted, it's called Pizza Guys versus Vampires. It's a kind of 80s campy horror comedy with pizza delivery guys fighting vampires. And there's a couple visual effects shots in there that are all AI, and they would have cost, like, had you gone to like a standard visual effects house, it would have cost more than double the price of the entire shoot. So there's definitely ways that you can use it ethically. I think when they were training the models for this particular stuff, they weren't using any copyrighted stuff. So like, there's still ways that you can leverage the tech without infringing on other folks and whatnot. And at the end of the day, it just allows storytellers to level up the quality of the end product and still have them be able to make a living at it, right? I mean, if I'm trying to make a film and my budget is $100,000, I got to squeeze every dollar out of that thing, and I want the product to be as polished and finished as possible. And if AI helps me do that, then I'm going to use it. So
I think there's another podcast episode that around what happens to all the junior talent and how do you get into a company to be the senior person to leverage AI without having the, having that.
I think we're going to go back to good old fashioned apprenticeships. So, which is what you have in the trade, like kind of the physical trades, like plumbing, electricity, construction. Like, I've seen these guys do drywall, right? And to be fair, I think you're probably going to have robots do that, but they're not, like, those aren't coming anytime soon. And you're still going to have folks to train the robots. But at the end of the day, like, when the senior people die or age out of the workforce, who then is going to train the robots and fix them and make sure that they're doing what they're doing correctly? Like, you still need to have this kind of path of experts in the pipeline to replace any sort of aging, because otherwise all that knowledge is gone, right? I mean, essentially, if AI replaces knowledge workers and the knowledge workers that train the AI are now gone, like, how do you know that knowledge is not now false or somehow, like, so you still need that pipeline of experts to kind of backfill all of that. And so I think you're just going to see a kind of an apprenticeship. So you're going to see folks, and it may be government, funded, you may get tax credits for it, or, who knows what it is, but,
that's interesting.
That's what's going to show up.
So we are recording this kind of in kind of just early Q2 of 26. So I guess you mentioned that kind of early May is kind of the bigger launch of your vertical platform. So I guess what does the rest of 2026 kind of ideally look like for you? So if you came back on a podcast for the third time in a year from now, like, you'd be like, hey, we did this.
I think success for us is in 12 months, we have 100 titles on the platform. That may result in, it probably end up being 70 to 80 filmmakers. Most filmmakers are going to have one or more titles. So, but 100 titles is what we're shooting for. Revenue numbers, we'd love to be break even, but all the money we're raising right now, it's 80% of it, 85% of it is keyed towards user acquisition. So growth on the consumer side. So we're going to be doing a lot of ad spend. And there again, like, we're leveraging AI as much as we can to optimize that spend and drive traffic. So I think success in 12 months would be, we're doing really well revenue wise. We've got all the titles. We've got some runway. We're kind of positioned well for the seed round, which is what we're trying to do. That would be the next step. So we're looking to raise, everything's all dependent, but anywhere from 3 to 5 million on the next seed round. We're only raising $500,000 on this round to get the initial kind of slate going and users and whatnot. So I think that would be success for us.
Sounds like a fun year. We could probably talk a lot longer about a lot more things, especially getting into bourbon and all that other fun stuff. But I'm going to ask you the same 3 questions to round this out that we did the first go around. So maybe if you can maybe give different answers if you can't remember your other ones.
Sure.
So first question here, what's a book or podcast that you would recommend? And I don't even know if I actually, maybe I didn't add podcasts when you were first on, but I did add it now because some people are adding more podcasts in here. So a book or a podcast that you may recommend to the audience.
Well, the podcast that I don't miss ever is the All In podcast. And I'll caveat it by saying I know Jason Kiesel personally. He was the guy that got me on stage to launch my first company. So he ran a conference back in the day called TechCrunch 50, which later turned into TechCrunch Disrupt. And then he split with Michael Arrington, and Arrington took TechCrunch and he started Launch. So the Launch conferences were essentially the same. So I did it way back in 2009 when he and Michael Arrington were kind of co-producing it. My good friend from high school and grade school happened to be like the head producer for the show. So he got my app into the conference and That's how I met Jason, and we ended up doing really
Nice.
well. That's how we raised our initial angel round and all that. So all in podcast, everything those guys say is, in my opinion, pretty spot on. I think there's a nice mix of political positions. It's interesting. Some of them started out liberal or progressive, and now they're not. Like things have shifted, but they're always spot on with tech, world events. They're just super smart guys.
Interesting.
Been consistently putting out interesting stuff. So
I've heard of it. I had not. I haven't listened to a ton. I've listened to a few of the episodes, but I'm not a religious like you are. Listening to it every episode. But I'll have to check it out on a more regular basis. Very cool. So favorite thing to do outside of work, other than whiskey? I think you said that last time.
I've been playing pickleball recently. So
okay.
That's apparently the hot thing to do at my age, especially here in Austin, where I'm pretty sure that one of the governing rules body for pickleball, I think they're headquartered here. So
they are.
Yeah. So it's big out here. I like it because it's a smaller court. It's fast paced, but the ball still doesn't move. Like the ball moves quick, but when it bounces, it's not moving that quick.
Correct.
Like it's kind of a modified wiffle ball.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it. It's a fun game. I'm super competitive, so I
love it.
Yeah.
We'll have to go out and play. They just opened a big pickleball place up near us in Cedar Park. I just saw it the other day kind of open up. So yeah, very, very popular sport for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Final question here. Favorite vacation spot?
So last time I said Martha's Vineyard, which still probably is up there, if not the favorite. The second one that I would choose, I'm more of a beach person, so I'd probably say Maui. I haven't been back since the fires. You were there, I think last time I was there was in 2018.
Okay.
But I love to stay at the Sheraton Black Rock, which is on Ka'anapali Beach. I think it's the south side of the island, but they've got this monster kind of black lava rock that juts out from the beach. And so when you get in the water, you can basically just kind of snorkel a good few hundred yards in and around that point, and it's just all fish and coral and all that stuff. So
interesting.
It's a great place to stay. And you've got you've got Lahaina, which is, that's the town that burned. That was only 15 minutes away. You've got the Hyatt, you've got the Westin, you've got all these great restaurants right on that beach front. So the whole Ka'anapali Beach is like one big resort row. Yeah. And Sheraton's right on the end. So it's a nice spot.
Yeah, we stayed at on Ka'anapali Beach a couple years ago. We stayed, I don't know where the Black Rock was, the Sheraton, but we stayed kind of more in that kind of more central area where there's a bunch of hotels.
There's like a little market or a shopping mall right there. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty cool.
My wife and I are huge fans of Duke's, which is it's like a restaurant chain. There's one in Malibu that we used to go to a lot. That actually it wasn't destroyed in the fires, but it was destroyed by the flood. Big mudslide came in after the fire and just worked it over. But now it's back up and running. But they have a sister restaurant right on Ka'anapali Beach. They have a Duke's in Maui. They have one in Kauai. They've got one in LA. They got them everywhere. And they got great Mai Tais.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Jason, man, it's good to catch up again. Have you on the podcast for a second time. This is a lot of fun. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Packed House Pictures and your inverted films and all that fun stuff, what's the best way to reach out and connect with you?
The best way is probably through my personal website. I've got jasonkiesel.com. That's Diesel with a K. So it's Kiesel. And just go there. It's like my About Me page. It's got all my socials and it's got my email. Jason at packedhouse.com, packed-house.com. So if you want to just shoot me an email, that's there as well. So
cool. We'll have all that stuff in the show notes. Yeah, no, we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So really appreciate it, man. It was good to catch up and learn more about this new venture that you're doing. And I appreciate you being back on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on. It was great. It was fun.
I hope you found at least one actionable insight from this episode of the Growth Capital Podcast, your one-stop shop for insights from private equity leaders, CEOs, and startup entrepreneurs on starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, as well as the role having the right talent plays in growing a successful business. It would be greatly appreciated if you would rate and review this podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and drop us a comment so we can expand the audience of this podcast. Thank you for all your support, and don't forget about upcoming episodes dropping every Tuesday.